I've been thinking about things that commonly cause annoying injuries, sometimes severe. But most commonly, it starts with posture. And one thing a person can do is back up against the wall and flatten the scapulae against the wall, palms forward, and then just walk away from the wall and feel how it feels. It feels unnatural, actually, because we've become accustomed to slouching. You'll notice often that 2-year-old kids will sit on the floor, and as they're sitting there playing, their backs are absolutely straight a lot of the time. And I think that chairs have probably ruined our posture. I'm not sure, but something has. In any case, it could also be that our backs have not developed as much as the rest of us in terms of being erect when we walk. So the back is a little weak, and it still wants that we brachiate, I think. So anyway, this business of being wide in the shoulders and the scapulae flat makes the ball joints of the shoulders geometrically a little more available to playing. So this is one of the basic things. Erect, back, chin in. Alexander technique and just common sense are good things as far as posture is concerned. I remember meeting a woman in the 1960s, late 60s, who was actually a student of Alexandrian. And the woman looked to be about, 50 years old. She talked as if she was 30 and moved as if she were 20. And at that point, she was 80. She was absolutely remarkable. And I remember sitting in a session with her and leaving that session feeling as if I didn't weigh anything. And I've tried to sort of recapture that all the time as far as my teaching is concerned, as far as playing is concerned, because it's comfortable. It's immensely comfortable. I can remember that woman walking up behind me, taking hold of the tops of my ears this way, and simply pulling me up very gently. And that's basically all it is up and chin in. What that does is it makes the cervical spine more of an extension of the spine. In any case, shoulders back wide. The next thing is being able to work with inertia, overcome it, working with momentum so that instead of fighting momentum, we begin to use it to fold our motions into the next motion. Continuity and smoothness of the operation of the muscles and so forth. And deciding which muscles do what. Very often, we're inclined to use gangs of muscles that could be used totally separately. One example is not being clear which part of the arm is making the bow go. In the lower half, obviously, it's going to be the upper arm. In the middle, it's going to be the upper arm drawing and the forearm coasting. And then in the upper half, it's going to be the forearm. And so, our tendency is to kind of move our hand rather than lead with the largest part of the arm. Okay, so as we think about that, we can make some generalizations that shouldn't be taken necessarily rigidly, but they generally obtain. In the lower half of the bow, the upper arm leads and the forearm coasts. So as we go out, and the upper half of the bow, the forearm leads and the upper arm coasts. As we reach the frog, invariably, we try to relax the deltoid muscle. If we don't, we begin to have annoying little pains at the right base of the neck on the right side. These are because we move the upper arm in a planary fashion this way. So anyway, distinguishing between the use of the upper arm and the use of the forearm. One way to do that, isolate the forearm by practicing piqué strokes, little explosions. So as you'll notice, the upper arm actually moves in the opposite direction of the hand. And that means the musculature up here is totally divorced from the use of the bicep and the recovery of the use of the tricep and the recovery of the bicep. And just thinking about this and practicing, 25 in Popper, is a good idea so that you divorce those two things, or can divorce them if you want to. The next thing to do is to practice something like two slurred and two detached. Where you totally distinguish between upper arm, forearm, and that then can go into triplets with the same kind of arrangement where the upper arm is driving the first triplet and the forearm is driving the second. And in organizing that way, you find that you can play a lot faster, a lot more easily, and a lot more economically. As we think about the bow and the comfort of the bow arm and the lack of and the reduction of tension, we can start with an up bow pickup to a down bow, downbeat. And what we try to do is we try to choreograph in such a way that the right elbow reaches its lowest point, its nadir, at the end of the up bow and the beginning of the down bow, so that we have a gesture that mimics the sound that we want to get at the end. So if we take something like, always the right arm is such that the deltoid is relaxed at the end of that upstroke. And we have to plan that way ahead of time. So this business of being able to choreograph with playing, as with music itself, it's what's between the notes that's so important. And choreographing allows us to fold one motion into the next in a continuous way that allows us to contract and release rather than building up tension. And it also allows us to decide how much force is necessary to get something done, so that we don't apply more than is necessary and have to put the brakes on. It's this kind of tension and forced coordination which causes forced sound, and it also, in the long run, causes tension and discomfort and sometimes pain. I can remember Starker saying to me, if it isn't easy, it's wrong. And that means that if you take care of things between the notes, things are much easier. So if we take little portions of music and look at the elements involved in preparing for them and playing them, it may be some help. First of all, from the Allemande of the G major suite, just the first couple of gestures, one of the first things that we try to do is we try to arrive at the G and D strings with the elbow down and the deltoid relaxed. The next thing we try to do is to rotate the bow around its center of mass. Not its center of gravity, its center of mass, which is the mass in motion. So that instead of moving the bow this way, we try to move it this way. And so as we take the pickup to the we try to rotate the bow around the center of mass and arrive at the G-D strings. Going on, we find that we can arrive at points where the right deltoid muscle can be relaxed. So there's one. Here's another. So you can see there are places where the upper arm can actually quite relax, and where you can decide whether you're driving the bow with the upper arm or whether you're driving it with the forearm. It also allows you to look at and feel the hinging qualities of the right wrist, so that forces of the arm are not making the thumb and the first finger recreate pressure and so forth, creating tension. So as you do it, as we sort of limp our way through a portion of the movement, we can see, 1, where the arm drops, 2, where we're using our forearm, 3, the fact that the upper arm moves in a kind of a circle all the time, and these things are extremely important. So as we move through, you can see that there's a kind of a dance that goes on here. The next thing that's of importance with regard to this stuff is the shift and the preparations of the shift. With the bow stroke, when we can, we try to start the stroke by using arm weight to overcome inertia. So if I'm going to play, that, I try to simply activate the weight of the arm rather than make the bow move. If we work with shifting, it's somewhat the same, because when we shift, the first thing we do is relax the deltoid, then we move. Relax, cast, relax, cast. So as we play. So what this does, if we move with the upper arm rather than moving the forearm, number one, we move in a line rather than an arc, and number two, we don't use muscles in the forearm which are going to be busy fingering. It's a kind of a big thing, so that the muscles in the forearm don't have to overcome tension. So as we look at that, so you can see, number one, that this is always moving, trying to move in a circle, always trying to settle, and that this also is always quite active. And I think, one, trying to conceive motions in scale playing and bowings and so forth, that you translate into the playing, so that you can do things as easily as possible and as accurately as possible, and that you actuate musculature at the beginning of a motion and coast into the activity rather than force your way in. If you explode like this, it's invariably either jerky or so highly controlled that you create tension in yourself, and it's really quite unnecessary. So even if something is fast, you still have these moments when you can relax, as it were. On the other hand, the idea of using only as much force as is necessary to get the job done. If you're playing something with relatively fast bow strokes, what you try to do is you try to imagine what it takes to make the bow move just far enough. So as you're playing, what's happening is that you're moving the bow only with as much force as it takes, again, to get the job done. Then, if you need more emphasis here or more emphasis there, you simply add a little energy, and you don't have to labor in order to get things done.